In this video, we're going to talk about work-life wellness in a remote environment. How is wellness impacted by remote work? How do we respond to the varying needs of our employees? And what can HR do to improve work-life wellness for our employees? Answers to these questions and more are coming up right now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams and the host of HR Shop Talk. On this show, you get expert insight into HR. I encourage you to subscribe to the show or subscribe to the podcast to keep learning from my smart and experienced guests. Today, my guest is Dr. Laura Hambley-Lovett. She's a business psychologist, thought leader on remote leadership and workplace flexibility, and author and speaker. She has founded several psychology practices in Canada, including Work Evolution and Canada Career Counseling. Dr. Laura is currently a partner with Humance, a national consulting firm focused on culture and performance. Hi, Laura. How are you?
I'm well on this beautiful Friday morning in Calgary. How are you, Andrea?
I am good. I'm good and really looking forward to this conversation. Okay, so let's just dive in right away because it's going to be packed. So I've read some of your work and you talk about work-life wellness instead of work-life balance, which is something we're familiar with in HR. Why do you use work-life wellness?
So the term balance to us kind of implies a perfect, even balance. When I find that over my years of working with organizations, working with people, being a mother of three and running three businesses in my past life, it's just there's no perfect balance. It's really about integration and finding that you are fulfilled and well in all the roles that you're doing. So through some research and lots of discussion, we found that the term work-life balance wasn't resonating as well, and we really searched for what term would work better. The goal is to be well in your work and well in your life and well in whatever else you're doing, and it's a constant project for people to really find the right work-life wellness for them.
So what are the predominant wellness impacts, the good and the bad, of remote work?
Sure. So just to give context, I did my dissertation for my doctorate on this topic of remote leadership, and I started that research in 2003. So I've been at this a very long time. There are definitely good and bad aspects, and what we specialize in at Work Evolution and what we've become thought leaders on is how do we take advantage and really embrace all the benefits and wellness impacts? And we hear them and we see them. The saved commute time is a huge one. Having to commute 5 days a week, and the average commute in our city is, say, maybe 20 to 25 minutes each way. But in other cities, like the GTA, for example, that average is more like an hour each way for a lot of people. So saved commute times is huge. And basically having more flexibility to juggle your work and your life roles, and being a parent, that can make a big difference. And then some of us have elder care, and having that flexibility, etc. That's a huge benefit. And we find that people are more productive and work harder when they are remote. But then the flip side of that is the boundaries issue. And we call it blurred boundaries between work and home, never escaping work, Zoom fatigue, working all the time and never turning off. And lots of people are experiencing stress and burnout right now. So that would be probably the number one challenge with full-time remote work, which is why I'm a fan of the hybrid solution, which is a middle ground.
All right. So you say remote workers tend to overwork, and this was in something I read that you'd written, and that has a negative impact on their wellness. What do we need to learn about overwork, and how can employers, perhaps championed by HR, promote better habits?
Well, that's such a well-said question, Andrea. And I think it is HR are leaders in this, and you need to showcase what healthy work-life wellness is, and so do the leaders, all the way from the CEO and the executive team down, right? It's about habits. It's about building in breaks in your calendar and honoring those breaks. And it just becomes an accepted communication versus being proud of, wow, I worked nonstop today from dawn till dusk and I didn't take a break. Well, you shouldn't be proud of that. You should be ashamed of that, because that's not good role modeling. And we are human beings, not human doings. And we are not like a computer that can be plugged in. We are like a rechargeable battery. And if you're not recharging, your brain is not firing as well as it could if you took that break, even a walk. You need to be stretching, walking, exercising indoors. Those are the things that we find are lacking and can have a real negative impact on health.
You talked about showcasing wellness and how leaders need to model the behavior they want to see. But, to be honest, this is a fairly deeply held cultural value, is to work, work, work. And, this is not a small task to get people to take breaks and rest more.
And it's a habit. It's a series of habits that need to be role modeled at all levels and normalized, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than stigmatized, as well as the start to your day and the finish to your day, and those clear boundaries. And that's why we do a lot of training on blurred boundaries in remote workplaces, because it's one of the hottest topics. And we take the leaders and train them on blurred boundaries, and then train the employees on blurred boundaries.
Mm-hmm. What does setting boundaries look like?
It means, because you no longer have the commute time when you are a full-time remote worker, okay? So I'm using the example of during the pandemic. Your commute time often forms structure between your work day and your non-work life. So when you don't have that, you need to create and craft your own commute. So for me, I tend to plan my workout with my trainer at 5 o'clock, because it's a nice break between my work day and then my evening with my family. So that would be an example. Other people might close their office door, turn off their computer, right? And have that physical closure and not go back to that office in the evening or on the weekend, right? So again, it just depends on your own rituals, but it needs to be rituals and habits to signify the end of your workday as well as the beginning of your workday.
That would take a fair bit of discipline.
Yeah, it would. But again, if you don't do it, the risk is that you're working all the time and then you're complaining about, I just feel so burnt out. I feel so tired. I can't get away from work.
Yeah, it's not a good alternative. If you found this interesting, subscribe to see all the episodes and comment. What have you learned about wellness and remote work, either as a remote worker or from the HR perspective? Let us know in the comment section below. And back to you, Laura. So next question. Different employees have different needs. I'm a bit of an extrovert, but there's lots of people who, they're introverts and, maybe remote work works for them. So in a future where working from home is more of an option than it has been, how do we support the diversity of needs and preferences?
That is a very good question. And I feel one of the biggest challenges of remote work before the pandemic, in the 15 years that I was involved before this COVID even hit, one of the biggest challenges is people see it as an all or nothing phenomenon. So either you're a teleworker, Andrea, or you work at the office. And that distinction, that's too much of a good thing. So to me, working full-time remotely actually doesn't work for most people. All of our research shows that 100% remote, that's not the fit for most people. We need that human face-to-face interaction, and people miss that so much right now. But do we need it 40 hours a week? Do we really? And do we need to add to that 40 hours, 4 to 6 hours of commuting time? Really? Right? And do we need all those, to be in an office building in order to be productive? some jobs do, some people do, but a lot of us can really find the right hybrid mix of a 2-3 day split seems to work for most people. So I'm a 3-day from the office, 2-day from home split. Other people might be a 4-1 split or a 2-3 split. But what we really have landed on is that each person has their own profile or natural tendency for the ideal mix of where they work. And there are ways that HR can support helping people make those decisions.
Does that complicate the job of HR or managers in trying to connect all these various schedules? What have you seen that worked?
I'll talk about the leader or manager first. So if you're a hybrid manager, meaning you have team members who are in the office and out of the office, okay? Or maybe team members in other cities, which has happened for a long time with globalization and cross border work, etc. So it is harder. It is harder, and it takes more planning, and it takes more intentionality to say, okay, when my team is together, they overlap 1 day a week where everyone's in. We need to be darn sure that we're using that time on those collaborations that where face-to-face would be really beneficial. So you have to plan ahead, right? You have to schedule and plan ahead, and you can't just rely on those informal ad hoc running into each other at the water cooler, right? Or walking down the hall and seeing what Andrea's up to. You can't. You have to be more planful and intentional. But I say with that extra work and effort comes extra rewards, and the reward is flexibility. The F word, but the good F word.
Yes. Okay, so you, like you said, have been studying this for years, but COVID has been quite an opportunity to learn more. So what have you learned about remote work and work-life wellness during COVID?
I've learned so much because we had this whole foundation of knowledge and research and experience. But I would say what organizations are finally understanding is the hybrid model, right? That's where the ones who are most strategically minded about this are going. So we have 3 camps, okay? We have the one camp, let's just keep everyone remote, right? Oh, we save money on real estate, right? Like, maybe we don't even need an office. That can work, but I would be very cautionary about that because it's difficult. That's a difficult one, right? But I've seen it be successful and stuff, but it's kind of like the minority of industries, organizations, teams, etc., can operate in a fully remote context and do it well and preserve their culture and have a culture, and right. But I feel like if they say full-time remote, in a year or two, they're going to be pulling everyone back. It's going to be the boomerang effect. And like we saw with Yahoo and IBM and stuff, oh gosh, everyone must come back. And we always said about those cases, that was leadership and team dynamics just weren't going well. It wasn't thoughtfully and intentionally organized, trained, and supported, right? So the second camp is we need everyone back in the office. Like, everyone must come back to the way it was, right? Because we want to go back to the way it was. Well, I have news for you. You've given your people a taste of flexibility when it suited you and when it suited the world, but then you're going to take it fully away. Not a good idea. And then the third camp is the hybrid. We're going to look at a mix of what works for the person, what works for the job, and what works for the organization. We're going to find the ideal mix of a hybrid model. And that's where we have a lot to share on that too. And we're very excited about those organizations that are heading in that direction.
On the whole, is remote work positive or negative? And what priority should HR and organizations have to make remote work a more positive experience?
By remote work, I think we all have this in our heads that remote work is what it's been in the pandemic. Everyone's working remotely and during a pandemic, and this is not a good pilot of remote work, first of all. This is an all or nothing type scenario, interlaced with a lot of other stress variables and uncertainty. So is it good or bad? I think, well, the way it is right now, it's been hard. But I like to say, I don't even know about the term remote work overall, because it implies 100% remote to me. So I'll use it and stuff because our clients are using it and the world is using it. And we got to be on the same terminology sometimes. But I really prefer distributed because we're apart from one another at least some of the time, or hybrid, right? We're a mix of working office, home, and other locations. So I would say that those terms are better than remote work. And it's not a one size fits all. That's one of my favorite things. It's not a one size fits all. It depends on your organization. It depends on the work that you do, the team that you have, the type of tasks that you do. And as organizational psychologists, it's always about what are the work variables? What are the deliverables? What are the tasks? And that should dictate the extent to which you need to be physically together.
So in the current environment of so many people being 100% at home, what priorities should HR and their organizations have to make remote work a more positive experience?
I think that there's so many different ways to make it more positive. And we've been talking about a lot of different things. So we've been talking about how to make people feel more connected, how to deal with work-life wellness and stress and resiliency. We've been talking about trust and the importance of building strong, trusting relationships when you're at a distance. We've been talking about onboarding and how you go about creating more intentional onboarding so people joining during the pandemic feel part of the team. So, I mean, there's a lot of different angles I could take on this, but if there was one angle I would say is most important of all with the pandemic context is showing people that they're appreciated, they're valued, and their situation is cared about. And that means HR checking in with people, not checking up on, but checking in, and encouraging managers to do the same. So how are you doing? How are you really doing? Right. So oftentimes when you say, how are you? I'm good. Right. Yeah. How are you really doing? Well, it's kind of crappy, right? Because A, B, C, and D, right? Just understanding the struggles each person is facing. And if people feel truly heard and valued, you're going to get a lot more engagement and productivity, but you're also going to be a better human-centric organization.
So thanks, Laura. So maybe work-life wellness is a term that you will adopt now. It makes more sense to me. I did another.
Does it make more? Okay, good.
More sense to me. Yeah. I did another episode with Dr. Hambley on general remote work practices. I've posted a link to that here. She also has her own podcast called Where Work Meets Life, which has exposed me to some thought-provoking ideas. You can find that on drlaura.live or on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. And thanks for watching, and see you next time.